Good evening, Nancy and Hanko.
Good evening to Doctor.
Nancy, how are you?
I'm fine.
Okay. So let's wait for a few minutes. Hey, where are the others? You're only 4. Ndaba, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, and yourself, Doctor.
Where are the other people, the other members?
Doctor, I'm not sure if they saw the message on the group today. That's
I'm
the
just
only
seeing one
reason
on
I
load
think no
shedding,
one else has joined.
I've just read a message that there is a load shedding until 4. So I've only received that message, the one concerning load shedding. So 5 hours of load shedding per day. This is serious, eh? I can see some explanation by Hanko on the chat box. What about the Ugandan? Are they also experiencing load shedding? So let's wait for feedback from them. I've just posted a message on the wall. Let's wait and see. Mercy, how are you? Hi, Mercy.
Hi, Doctor.
Where are your people?
I think they're going to log in.
Oh, okay. Please inform them that we are waiting, eh?
All right, Doctor.
Oh. So I think in the interest of time, we can proceed. So we are not going to wait for the others because of time. Let us just continue. Now, I urged you guys to go through the 3 articles which I shared on the wall. There is one additional one which I uploaded yesterday. So I believe you've gone through those articles. So I want us to begin with the first one, the one on agricultural cooperatives and value chain coordination. So maybe just to recap, let's remind ourselves of what we discussed yesterday before we delve into the discussion of these articles. Can we remind ourselves? Nancy, I hope today your laptop is behaving. Nancy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm using my phone and yeah.
Today, I hope you have sound, eh?
Yeah, sure.
So just remind us, bring us to speed, eh? What did we talk about? What was the discussion all about in yesterday's lesson? Nancy, we are waiting for you. Nancy? Let's hear from you, Nancy.
Yeah, I'm getting my notes, yeah.
Must you retrieve the notes? Any take home message, yeah?
I didn't kind of recap after I went only through the PDFs. I didn't recap the.
So when you are going through the PDF, it means you are not relating to the notes or the topic. You are reading the PDF, you know, in isolation, eh?
Yeah.
You are supposed to link the discussions, the article, to the notes or the topic of discussion. So I can see Hanko has posted on the chat that the discussion was about the link between value chains and new institutional economics and the way the value chains are coordinated, the specific governance mechanisms that are applicable, the difference between horizontal and vertical coordination, and that they require different governance mechanisms. Ndaba, were you there yesterday?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't, Doctor. Sorry about that.
You were not around yesterday?
No, but I did explain to you.
Okay, Mercy? Mercy?
Yes, doctor.
Mercy, we can't hear you.
Is to get and log in. She's a bit disturbing on calling. Please.
Mercy?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, a quick recap, eh? Just brief us what you gathered from yesterday's discussion? Any take-home message?
Yesterday, we were looking at the supply chain coordination and governance. And the key things that, the point that outstood for me was how we talked about the spot marketing idea. And in that, it was an open question to the class, but then Dr. you finalized, or you told us it's where buyers are able to buy commodities and pay immediately. It's a direct or immediate transaction. And there you hit about the advantages and maybe the disadvantages, and you emphasized more on the disadvantages, where we said it's difficult to have a traceability. It is difficult to trace back in case one buys or purchases a commodity that may not fit their expectations. In case it's faulty, maybe the commodity is bad. And then even there's a point that wasn't submitted, but it was on my side, and it was about price inflations. It's possible to have price inflations in that. And then we also talked about there was something to do with, is it reciprocate or reciprocal, something of that, where transactions are done, but you expect a return. Like, for example, when someone, maybe let's say it's a partnership thing. Actually, you gave an example and said maybe when Musa helps me do some work, I also help him in regard, it's on a mutual benefit. And you're expected to be back the same in the transaction. And maybe actually you spoke of, maybe it's a cooperative, maybe you supply. Actually, someone gave an example of Britannia. Then also someone gave an example of, I give another example, maybe someone gives you fertilizer for a commodity for growing, but then the produce, you have to supply it to them. Basically, Doctor, I think I'll leave the rest for other people to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I think you have tackled a number of issues that were discussed yesterday. Justus, any take-home message from the previous lesson?
Doctor, for yesterday, it was, for me, the take-home messages was mainly focusing with the pool dependencies. So the channel, the pool, the sequential dependencies that we had. And then also just focusing on the difference in the behavioral section, almost with the invisible hand section as well.
Thank you for that. Alice, welcome on board. How are you this evening?
Yes, good evening, Prof. Good evening, Doctor. I'm okay. How are you?
Fine, thank you. We are just recapping, eh?
Yes.
What is your take-home message from yesterday's lesson?
Basically,
Yes? Alice, you're muted.
sorry, Doctor. Sorry about that. We talked about the spot markets. I think that's something I can talk about now. We also talked about the different kinds of interdependency, where we had where we had the different kinds of interdependency, having the reciprocal interdependency, where we talked about different in the industries depending on each other for the different products. For example, the raw materials and then the finished products.
Mhm.
We also had the forget the one direction interdependence, I think. I've forgotten the term.
Social, eh?
Yes.
Mhm.
Then we also had the channel interdependency. Yes, that's what I can contribute for now, Doctor.
That is all, eh? That you gathered from yesterday's class, eh? Now, have you read the articles that I emphasized on in the evening, eh? Because that is what we want to now discuss as we pick out a few, related issues, eh? To our discussion. So have you gone through those articles? Because based on how you guys are, recapping it tells me that you have not gone through those articles.
Doctor, I've not read much, but I've read the document on the strategic choice. The one is
Remember,
I
I mentioned that you should read the 3 of them, eh?
The doctor had not yet read all of them, but I had tried reading through the one of strategic choice along the vertical coordination continuum.
Now let's begin with the first one, eh? Agricultural cooperatives and value chain coordination. Who can summarize for us what the article is all about? Anybody who has read and can give us a quick summary? Nancy, have you read the article?
Yeah, I've read that one.
So what is it all about? What are some of the issues that relates to our discussion that have been pointed out in this article?
Okay, so what I got is that, in summary, is that the passage is like discussing how agricultural cooperatives use the different coordination mechanisms to achieve the vertical coordination and also in agri-food value chains. So these mechanisms like include the community governance, social capital, democratic decision-making, market governance, and hierarchical governance. And now to split out now them, okay, this is what I wrote when I was reading out. Okay, so for the horizontal and vertical coordination, according to the article, cooperatives must align their members' activities for both horizontal within the cooperative, that is, and vertical, that is, along the value chain coordination. Then for the community governance and social capital, community governance and bonding social capital help reduce free rider behavior and facilitate informal exchange among cooperative members. Okay, so then there was this democratic governance, market governance, hierarchical governance, and size and heterogeneity. Also, there are like challenges of the community governance. But in summary, I think the whole thing is like in essence is like agricultural cooperatives, how they use a mix of coordination mechanisms to navigate the challenges of achieving vertical coordinations in dynamic agri-food value chain, and the choice of mechanisms that depend on the cooperative's characteristic and market conditions. Those are the main things I got from the paper.
Thank you. At least that demonstrates that at least you interacted with the article. So let's quickly go through the article. Just summarize the different sections. So the first bit explains about the dynamics within the food systems or the agricultural sector, and how the sector has undergone through tremendous changes. And that is why there is a need to now reconsider these coordination strategies and frameworks. So if you read that first section, can you see the section that I've highlighted? Sorry. Hello? Can you see the section that I've highlighted?
Yes.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, so it talks about the changes that are taking place. And we also realize that right now, supermarketization is really on the rise. And they have become key players in this sector. And we also mentioned that consumers are also demanding for certain things. They are demanding for food which is safe, quality, among other things. And this is because of the increase in income. And, they also want varieties of products and convenience. And that is why you find that farms are now exploring other strategies, like product differentiation and market segmentation. And on the supply side, we also noticed that there are a number of changes. So this has contributed to the emergence of these coordination mechanisms and strategies. And in the second bit, they are talking about, contract farming. We know that most supermarkets actually engage in contractual arrangements with farmers. Think of a local supermarket or any other supermarket within your country. Where do they normally get their supplies from? The food supplies, precisely. You'll find that they have some contractual arrangements with the farmers. So that has been expounded under that section. Then they've talked about, in the second section, they've talked about the coordination, efforts. So these changes have actually contributed now to this coordination mechanisms. And they have defined what vertical coordination means, as well as the horizontal coordination. So if I may pose a question at that point, what are some of the reasons from this article that has made cooperatives to gain prominence? Why have cooperatives gained prominence? Sam and Troy, how are you? Hello?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, we are going through these articles,
Yes, Doctor.
So if you read through that next paragraph, what are some of the reasons why supermarkets have gained, prominence? They are now becoming popular. And I'm sure even in your countries, in Uganda's, you can count a number of cooperatives within the agricultural sector. Yesterday, you talked about the coffee cooperatives, the dairy cooperatives, among others. So why are
Doc-
they gaining prominence?
Doctor, in essence, they are able to best use economies of scale, which therefore means their supply chains and inputs, they are able to reduce them to a point where other smaller non-members of the cooperative, it's still very expensive for them. Whereas in the cooperative, because of their scales of economy, they can make it a lot cheaper and more efficient than anyone else. And therefore, the rise, that's why there's a rise of these cooperatives.
Yes, economies of scale. You find that as an individual, there are certain things that you might not really achieve on your own, or you cannot deliver certain things on your own, not unless you pull your resources together and you collectively work towards achieving certain goals. What else? What else? We are making reference to this article, eh?
Okay, doctor, I've not, as I said, I've not been able to go through this article, but according to here, what happens in Uganda
But
is
you can read, Alice, eh? You've not been able. That is why I've decided to, create this room for discussion, eh?
what I'm saying. I just wanted to give, okay, the advantage based on what happens here in Uganda. For example, under the cooperatives, is that when farmers come together, for example, with their produce, they are able to get like that collective market for their products. Unlike when it's an individual farmer. So I think that one of the reasons why cooperatives have gained prominence is because they help farmers, especially the smallholder farmers, to get that collective market for their products, so they are sure of market for their produce. Yes.
Okay, that's true. Other than that, we are told from this article, in the article that in order for them to adopt to, some of these emerging production methods and even technology, as an individual, farmers might not really be able to adopt those techniques or technologies, or even purchase some of the facilities. But if they work together as a team, then they're able to adopt these methods, and they're even able to fulfill the requirements of local and international customers. So that is very clear. And also when it comes to quality requirements, they are able to meet those requirements because they can utilize some of the modern techniques. They can also, meet some of these requirements, and they can even participate in other markets with more stricter requirements. I can see Hanko. Hanko, today you are not talking, eh? Or you are in the library. So the benefit of cooperatives is also that it contributes to standardization in terms of quality and quantity, and increased market participation, and ensures that all the participants benefit, and it also tries to address the opportunistic behavior. Of course, they are able to meet the quality requirements and even the quantity, because an individual farmer, smallholder farmer, the production is normally very minimal or little. But if they, collect these produce from different farmers, then they are able to deliver a certain quantity that is required by other actors. So even in terms of innovation, they are able to come up with some innovative ideas. So at the end of the day, this will improve efficiency along the value chain. So if you read the next section, they are talking about a cooperative, being a dual kind of approach, in the sense that other than meeting the economic benefits or gains, they also look at it from the social point of view, the interaction, where farmers get an opportunity to interact, share ideas, and so on and so forth, as they benefit economically. So it is dual in nature. And that is what they have discussed in that paragraph. Are we together? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
Doctor.
Doctor.
We'll accept.
Then this paragraph now, they're introducing the transaction cost economics. And they have really dwelt on it and even mentioned how these costs arise and the governance mechanisms that are needed in order to minimize on these costs. And I remember yesterday we also discussed some of these costs. So what is your take-home message from this section regarding the transactional costs economics? And they've also mentioned a number of theories, the organization theory, the social structure theory. So they've tried to relate these theories to this concept of cooperatives. So who can tell us what the discussion is all about? Hello? From the transaction costs economics perspective, the organization perspective, and the social structure theory, how do they relate to the concept of cooperatives? Sam? Hello, Sam?
Can I give it a try?
Yes, doctor. Let me try.
Yes,
Now, when farmers are from the same cooperative, remember the concept of transactional cost economics. We look at every transaction, there are costs involved, whereby, let me bring it to a real life example. Like supposing I'm purchasing land from someone, maybe Alex is purchasing land from Musa. There are other costs that Musa is the owner of the land. I'm supposed to kind of do diligence to find out whether Musa is the rightful owner of the land before I buy it. So whenever a transaction has to be successful, to minimize any risks of it failing, you have to do some due diligence so as to minimize chances of its failure. So the higher the costs, the higher the chances of transaction failure, the higher the chances of transaction costs. So when you're from the same group, at least I know your background, maybe we share even the same social behaviors. So it's easier to deal with someone because at least I know where they come from, and maybe we're in the same social group. So chances are low of transaction failure.
And of
Can I
course, even-
contribute?
yes, Nancy.
Okay, so from that excerpt, I got like the transaction cost economics, the TSC, the relationship to cooperatives was cooperatives are viewed as transaction-oriented organization where farmers become members because the cooperative can handle marketing and input purchasing transactions more efficiently than other organizational alternatives. Then for the aspect of organization theory, it's in the essence that it provides insight into the various ways of organizing and coordinating the activities among the different actors, whether within a single organization or across the collaborative partnership. And then for the social structure, it was like more of the importance of social factors in collective action and for the community governance, now that this is a cooperative, and then in the creation of value and the cost reduction through the social networks. That is what I got.
I think it's well put, eh? So the first one, these are economic entities, eh? And therefore, as these cooperatives engage in the input purchase and marketing transactions, eh? They need to be managed efficiently so that they minimize on these costs. And by the way, even costs arises as they try to screen the members to bring on board, because you cannot just onboard any person, or you cannot just accept anybody to be a member. That is why there are normally conditions, membership conditions, that before you become a member, you must produce this and that. You are either introduced by somebody who has a clear background of who you are, knows you very well, knows even your behaviors and so on and so forth. So they must do some screening so that they minimize on some behavior that can arise or may arise later on as you engage in these transactions. So they are trying to minimize some of these costs and try to enhance efficiency. So these are organizations at the end of the day, people coming together. And when people come together, you must find a way of coordinating, of relating in an organization. And that is why now there is that intra-organizational coordination issues. So you must plan for the activities. You must control these activities. Decision has to be made the right way. So there's need to coordinate those activities. And that's why if you look at 5.2, move to 5.2, where now they're trying to link the organization theory using the different types of interdependencies that we discussed yesterday. And they've also explained these interdependencies. And for instance, they've pulled interdependency, whereby each part of an organization renders a discrete contribution to the whole. So you can see these are different sections or parts of an organization, but they're contributing towards this common goal. So it means that if one of them maybe does not contribute in the right way or misses on certain things, then that will jeopardize the outcome of these activities. So assuming that these are suppliers, they are supplying some raw materials that goes into maybe production of a certain product. Do you think that the product will be fine or will be of the desired quality if one or two compromises the supply of these raw materials? Are they able to get the desired product at the end of the day? Definitely no. So they must coordinate these activities. They must account for their activities and their actions. So the main coordination mechanism is collaborations of such kind of interdependency is that there must be some standards to be adhered to for production, distribution, and product quality. So they must set some requirements or some standards that these other parts must adhere to. Otherwise, if each individual is working on his or her own ideas, then they will end up with a totally different product. So that is what has been explained. For the sequential one, you can see the output of one part becomes the input to another. So this one depends on the previous. The actions of the other one depends on the commands by the other. So normally you find that in such a case, the kind of strategy that is applicable is coordination by plan or command. You just command the previous, actor or link that this is what I want, this is what I need. Can you provide me with this? So you don't relate with many people. You are only relating with one part. So it requires a coordinating agent who plans the flow of products and information and directs adaptation to changing internal and external conditions, but just to the other party. Then, of course, they've also explained the reciprocal interdependency, which is clearly illustrated there. And it means that the output of each part is an input for every other part. So each part poses contingency for the other part. So you can see like this part, the other part, so it's like they are accountable for one another. And they've given us an example of joint innovation process, which requires a concerted effort from other party. Whatever decision that this party makes will affect this other one and will also affect the other party. So every time one partner proposes a changes in the joint outcome, it means that that proposal will affect the other members. So they've talked of a mechanism which is mutual adjustment. So they must agree mutually in case of changes. Whatever decisions, actions that they plan to take, they must agree jointly. Are we together? So it means that joint decision making and problem solving to coordinate individual activities is paramount. And as they do that, then even information exchange and feedback is very, very important to the other partners. Because based on experience, then they are able to make certain decisions. You remember path dependency? Again, from New Institutional Economics. I think this bit has really borrowed a lot from the behavioral economics and institutional economics. Path dependency. Who can tell us what path dependency is all about? Who can recall? Sibongile? How are you? Sibo, how are you? What is path dependency? Troy? Alice?
Doctor, I can give you my thoughts on it if you like. Path dependency.
Mm.
Doctor, I almost feel like in some ways it might just extend on what you've just spoken about in terms of the interdependence between each link in the supply chain. So depending on the path before you and then trying to create a better path for others after you. So being able to add value at a specific link that makes it easier for those that come after you, but you also rely on the path that's been created before you to be able to add that value yourself in the right qualities and quantities in the supply chain.
Mm.
That's my thoughts, Doctor.
Okay.
I think what Hanku's saying there at the bottom also relates to that in the sense that the decisions that are made.
Hanko has also contributed to that.
Yeah.
How past decisions or choices
Yeah.
inform our current and future decisions.
Yes.
And many a times when we are making decisions, we keep on referring to the past experiences.
Correct, Doctor.
Yes. What was the past experience? How was the transaction? How did it go? What worked well? What did not work well? How can I improve on the next or the future transaction? So the information or the past experience will inform your next decision or your future decision. So again, that is very, very important. So at the end of the day, information exchange and feedback from the past transactions is very important. And this information should be shared genuinely, and they should be honest as they share these information. Then they've talked about now the pooled interdependency. So, and they've suggested the kind of mechanism which is ideal for this kind of dependency. And now we find that we are moving now from a less coordinated to a more coordinated, supply chains. So when we move to now the reciprocal interdependency, we are moving to a more, to the pooled, we are moving to a more coordinated supply chain. So at the end of the day, these actors must communicate to each other. They need to share, again, a lot of information. They need to make coordinated decisions, gather and process the information collectively, and communicate these information. So there's a stronger interdependency when it comes to the activities being undertaken and even the transactions. So, and they've emphasized that there's need for information gathering and processing and decision making. So I think this section just elaborates on these interdependencies. And they've suggested the kind of mechanisms that are ideal or suitable for the different interdependencies. So is there any person with an issue relating to those interdependencies? So if you read this bit, it explicitly explains how the organization theory now relates to cooperatives and how these interdependencies requires different coordination mechanisms. And they have indicated that traditionally cooperatives are pooled, interdependent organizations characterized by both horizontal coordination mechanisms. And this is because you find that normally people of like-minded establish or come together and form a cooperative. For instance, a farmer, you know, a trader and a trader. And that is why these mechanisms are horizontal in nature. But then we also have those that, of course, you can find a mix of these actors. But in most cases, we find that they are farmer-based cooperatives, they are trader-based cooperatives. Maybe who can give us an example of a mixed cooperative society? And how does it work? An example of a mixed cooperative society?
Doctor, in South Africa, a mixed cooperative society would be someone like AFGRI. They were an agribusiness, but now they support farmers in supplying seeds and inputs, fertilizers. And on the other side, they also trade in the commodities. They are very big in trading on sausage. What the hell?
Sorry, we've lost
They-
your voice.
Yeah, sorry, doctor. They also very big in trading on the SAFEX market for the commodities in terms of mealies, soybeans, and the rest. They've even gone into commodities such as oil, gold, and silver as well now.
So who are their members? Who are the members of this cooperative?
It was originally farmers, and then now it's opened up to be anyone in the agricultural industry, whether that be small agribusinesses, fertilizer suppliers. But it started out as a small farming cooperative that's now grown into almost a multinational company in South Africa.
So is it a cooperative or is it a company or what is it? Because from
started out as a cooperative, but now it's become a company. If it makes sense, like
it has
that.
now been upgraded to a company, eh?
Yes, doctor.
But initially it was a cooperative because you know, when you talk about a cooperative, if you can refer to some of the features of a cooperative, and in this case we have you know, diverse actors with different expectations, and it means that the objectives, of course, at the end of the day will be different, and trying to meet the needs of these farmers, the traders, and so on and so forth. So I think that does not really qualify to be a cooperative, but it's good you've explained that it's now being upgraded to a company. But in an ideal situation, most African countries, you find that these cooperatives are horizontally coordinated. Anybody with a different maybe example? Anybody with a different example? So there can be horizontal relationships or vertical relationships, whereby farmers can decide now to relate with the downstream, actors. So again, this is another coordination mechanism that I know it's applicable, and most people have adopted it. And this is where now we talk about now the contractual arrangements. We have the farmers maybe entering into contracts with or the cooperatives entering into contracts with the processors or with the, other traders, such that their work is just to collect. Maybe if it is dairy cooperative society, they collect milk, but then they market this milk to maybe a processor or maybe another trader. So, and they enter now into a different level of coordination mechanism. So those ones are available.
Doctor,
Yes?
I wanted to inquire on regarding the mixed cooperative.
Mm-hmm.
For example, let's say agriculture-based cooperative.
Mm-hmm.
For example, they are maybe dealing, let's say, in let's say coffee, but in there are coordinations of obtaining fertilizer, maybe getting irrigation system, maybe getting, for example, let's say in case of if that weed, maybe use of other maybe herbicides, but like having a coordination of many activities. For example, people who will supply fertilizer, who will supply you water in case you need, for those that do different kinds of water that need a lot of water, normally called parchments. And the different coordinations, again, they have to look for the market, the different activities involved, yet it is one. Can that also apply to a mixed cooperative?
Yes, it can, eh?
Okay.
You find that they have got different activities. Maybe they need some inputs or some certain resources. And again, they enter into some kind of arrangement with other actors, eh?
Okay.
For instance, they vertically, integrate with other actors, eh? But it's still within the cooperatives, eh? So it is possible to have these kind of coordination mechanisms, multiple coordination mechanisms. They're vertical, they're horizontally integrated, but within, again, they have other arrangements, depending on the nature of activities that are in place and the objectives at the end of the day. So that is possible, Mercy, eh?
All right, Doctor, thank you.
Then moving to the next, where is it? So I think this part, they've also talked about the challenges encountered due to the changes in the environment, and whereby they've talked that they say that in a dynamic environment where competitiveness and performance depend on rapid responses to changes in prices, technologies, and policies, then the coordination becomes a problem. So because of these changes, it means that there is need even to be aware of these changes and even to be in constant communication. Because if the prices change, the farmers should be aware, other actors should be aware. If the technologies change, the policies change, they need to be up to date with these changes. Otherwise, there might be some coordination problems. Okay, then we move to the transaction economics, cost economics. So again, that has been well discussed. So who can summarize again that section based on his or her understanding? What is the focus of discussion under that section?
Doctor, I can give my view on it if you like.
Yes.
So the way that I understood it, Doctor, was the fact that throughout the supply chain, each different link or each different role player will have, well, there'll be transaction costs that occur between each player in the supply chain. So in order for people to create the most efficient and effective supply chain, especially in terms of costs, it will be key to try and reduce the transaction costs that occur between the different links, to try and keep the cost between each link down and like the overall cost of the chain down as well, which will also just help in terms of profitability and efficiency for each role player, I believe. That was my understanding.
Yes, so they have discussed some of these transactional risks and the costs that are encountered during when we are, coordinating these activities. And therefore, these costs can also be managed. They can be, brought to a certain level, minimum level. And they have talked about the transaction-specific investments. They've talked about some of the elements, of these transactions that contributes to these transactions. And they've mentioned the asset specificity and uncertainty. And I remember you also, you're aware that other than asset specificity, we also have the human specificity. What's the difference between asset specificity and human specificity? Human and asset specificity.
Doctor, in terms of that, the human as specificity would be your human capital. So that would be your human knowledge. So that would be your employees or the people that work for the cooperative, who work in the cooperative, their knowledge, their skills, their understanding, their intuition and their life experiences, where your assets would be more your physical stuff, such as your machinery, your factory, your equipment that you use, your vehicles and everything else, physical assets to that you can actually feel and touch. It is an easier way to explain it.
Yes, so the human and the assets are more of physical, but then how can they be now specific? When you talk of the asset now, specificity, the human being specific, how can that expertise, knowledge, be regarded as a specific in nature? Who can try, Nancy?
Honestly, I don't know how to phrase that one.
So when we say that human, we talk about the human specificity. Basically, what we mean is that you have some kind of specialized expertise which can just be applied in a certain area or to undertake a certain activity. In the sense that if, for instance, let me give an example of some specialized expertise. What can we say? Assuming you are trained maybe to, as a pilot. So as a pilot, you are trained to, fly the planes. And that is your knowledge area. So your expertise is in that. So assuming that there are no planes to be flown, where will you transfer that knowledge to? Is it possible to transfer it maybe elsewhere? Are you trying to understand the idea? It is now for a particular activity or a course of action, such that if that activity does not exist, then the knowledge again cannot be applied in other quarters. Are we together? So, and that is where now we have the sunk costs, or the information is now, the expertise has now been withheld because you cannot exercise it, you cannot apply it in other quarters. So that is the difference between the human vis-a-vis the asset, whereby we now have the physical assets, or the tangible or even the intangible assets, like even property rights. So they've talked about the transaction costs and how they can be managed by having appropriate governance structure. And for instance, they've given us an example that if farmers lack an alternative market for their produce, then it means that a hold up by the processor or trader poses a considerable threat. So if they don't have any alternative market for their produce, they cannot sell the produce because it cannot be used in other markets. It is so specific for a certain market. Then that is a loss at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, the products will not move. Maybe they'll even go bad. They will be disposed. So they are holding up these monies. The money is tied because you cannot use or market those products. So, and this is more so when the products are perishable in nature and they cannot, be kept or stored for a longer period of time. Are we together? So how can they reduce again the opportunistic behavior? Because even in cooperatives, we normally have such kind of behavior. I've seen cases, and especially, as cooperatives, you can also even take some loans, and the members can be guarantors. So we've seen cases where members go for these credit facilities, and they default the payment. And now it goes back to the members to shoulder the burden. So this opportunistic behavior exists even in cooperatives. They agree on the quality of even milk to be delivered. So you'll find that one person can decide even to adulterate the milk, or even to, not to feed the cows with the quality feeds. And at the end of the day, the milk produced is not of the right quality, simply because he wants to increase his gains. So they must also have these mechanisms in place, the governance mechanisms, to ensure that whatever they do is based on the members' interests. Is that clear? So if you read that section, you'll see how they've defined asset specificity and even given us some examples on asset specificity. And the sources of transaction costs is well defined. So anything regarding that section? So the main function of governance structure is to reduce the risk of opportunistic behavior, such that they are able to align the interests of these members and reduce the opportunities for opportunism. So we have members, of course, at the end of the day, people have conflicting interests. But then how can these people coordinate their activities? How can they come up with some rules that governs their behavior and interests so that they are able to achieve the goal of the cooperative? So any question up to that point? So under transactional cost economics, is that section clear?
Doctor, an inquiry.
Yes.
Regarding your explanation regarding the human specificity, the way I've perceived it, can it directly be transferred to the asset specificity? For example, you have a machine that is targeted to produce maybe a particular, or to work on a particular commodity, such that in case it's not working on that commodity, it cannot be used elsewhere. Can that also be a definition or another
Yes,
way
that is also a definition, an asset that is underutilized.
Okay.
It ought to have been utilized, but then it is not being put into full utilization.
Okay.
So you are not benefiting from it.
Okay.
So you are holding some, benefits. And therefore, as a farmer, if you have such kind of an asset, it is as good as not having the asset, because you are not benefiting from it.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor.
So there are certain activities also which are so specific that you cannot benefit out of them. So again, how do we avoid these asset specificity? So instead of maybe a farmer purchasing a certain, asset, and most of the time it will lie idle, not utilized. Why can't they combine forces and maybe purchase one that can serve multiple uses at the end of the day? So that if you are not using it for this activity, but then it can also serve a different purpose. Is that clear?
Yes, Doctor. Thank you.
Yes. So I think you've read through that section of transactional costs. And yesterday we mentioned some of these costs. The ex ante cost and the pre ante costs. So you can clearly identify them. Then concerning the social structure, of course, at the end of the day, we are dealing with the human beings and they are social in nature. And again, these transactions, we find that the opportunism arises. So how can these be managed? So we need, again, some governance mechanisms or structures so that at the end of the day, we minimize on these opportunism. And they've mentioned some of these unobserved behavior. They also talked about the free riding, the free rider problems, especially when you are sharing public resources or common resources. And people don't mind about the other parties. They mind about themselves, self-interests. So how do they enforce certain governance mechanisms to ensure that everybody at the end of the day benefits or to overcome these problems? So you can always introduce sanctions or punishment, or there can be some incentives. So who can give us examples of either an incentive or a punishment or a sanction? Hello? Alice? Who can give us an example or a scenario whereby you've seen these governance mechanisms work?
Doctor, I can give an example in coffee. For example, there is that in Uganda, we have that regulatory body like UCDA that regulates the operations or regarding the coffees, mainly on that are ready for export. And when they come maybe to a factory or a plant where those coffees are produced, and there are some, for example, they are called, there can be certifications, and there are some requirements that are put in place. And they always send inspectors. So when they come and maybe your plant is processing wet coffees, maybe your plant is buying very poor quality coffees, maybe maybe the plant is not well established. For example, you're working in dust, maybe the floors are not worked on, and you may be packing the coffee from a dusty environment and it's not clean, such things. When this inspector comes, he has a seal. There's what they call a seal. He can put a seal on the production and the entire factory, meaning he puts a ban, I can call it a ban, on all the operations until all those requirements are met. That's when he opens. So when he gives you that seal, it's like he bans you from producing anything or any operation proceeding until those things are rectified. And then he comes, takes away the seal. Actually, he notifies every person that this plant is sealed. So no operations will go on until you've rectified everything to ensure product quality and safety. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, so that is for individuals,
It's for the organizations that handle.
Organizations,
Yes.
But what if there is a common resource that is being shared by many people? And you find that sometimes, people have different interests.
Mm.
There are those who are not mindful of the others.
Mm.
And let me give you an example of a river. I don't know whether you've ever fetched water from the river or whether you guys ever fetched water from a river.
From wells and taps.
And from from the rivers or the wells.
Mm.
So you find that the first person who goes, maybe somebody can go to the river to fetch, and after fetching the clean water, now he's not mindful of the other person who will go after him. So whatever he does, whether he makes the water dirty, he doesn't care about the other party. But then this is, shared by many people, or even a cattle dip, where you find many people taking their cattle to the dip. Or maybe even a grazing land. Different people, it's an open grazing land, graze their animals on that land. So at the end of the day, how do they manage some of these negative behaviors from different individuals because of these unobserved behaviors? So there's a risk because these people have different interests. So not unless there is some even sanction or punishment, maybe they can introduce some fee just to limit access to that resource. They introduce some amount of money that for you to be able to access this well or whatever you must, or dip, you must pay even some money at the end of the month. So it means that you feel that you are, obliged to take care of that resource because you benefit from it. Or those who are not careful, they can be barred from using that resource, and so on and so forth. So these social relations sometimes can also lead to certain costs, but then these costs can again be minimized. And they have focused on the issue of trust, especially when you are relating with different people. So trust is an institution that can be relied upon. And that is why people enter into transactions based on trust. And again, they've talked about information, how the costs can be minimized by increasing the level of information being shared across. And they've also introduced some concepts, the different types of social capitals, the bonding and bridging. So who can tell us the difference between bonding and bridging? Bonding, social capital, bridging, social capital. I know when you'll be writing your proposals, you will always cite some of these concepts. What's the difference between bonding and bridging? Bonding and bridging? Bonding, social network, and bridging?
Doctor, what I know about the bonding is basically internal or within groups, whereas bridging is between different probably social groups or cooperatives. Yes.
So bonding is a relationship between people who have got some shared.
They have strong ties.
Yes. But then for bonding, for bridging, it is a relationship with people who are diverse across the different networks. So an example of a family, a family relationship, is it bonding or bridging?
It's bonding.
Bonding.
It is bonding, because they have some kind of a common feeling of identity. And like bridging, you find that these people, they have got different norms, maybe shared norms, and even values are different. But then you want to bring them together. So you want to harmonize all these so that they get to a certain level of understanding. So again, you must understand those kind of relationships. So I think with that, if you read up to that point, and then the kind of governance mechanisms that have been, of course, proposed for cooperatives, they are talking of mutual adjustment. Mutual adjustment is ideal for such kind of transactions, because there's a lot of coordination, there's a lot of sharing of information with one another, and therefore this kind of governance mechanism is very, very important. And they have summarized the different types of governance mechanisms in table 5.1. So you can see the kind of markets, the hierarchy, the community, the democracy that is suggested. And that is very, very important that you take time and go through that. So I think that is all concerning this article. So do you think the article speaks to the topic of concern? Is it relevant?
Yes, doctor, it is.
Is the topic relevant?
Yes, doctor.
Then other than that, we also had the other, let me just check on the other. The supply chain coordination. Did you manage to read this, the other article on food supply chains, coordination, governance, and other shaping forces? And I think, again, the discussion revolves around the same issues that we talked about. Talking about the spot markets and some of the features of spot markets. And they've also talked about the kind of interdependencies that we talked about, and the different governance mechanisms for those kind of interdependencies. So they've begun here by defining what an hybrid institution is all about. Of course, we know that institutions are very complex in nature and involves many stakeholders. And they could be performing even different tasks. Or sometimes they are performing jointly tasks. So this heterogeneity requires, again, some kind of governance. So they've talked about ideal situations when such kind of institution is applicable, when a hybrid kind of institution is relevant. And they've also talked about some of the trade-offs between the markets and the farms. What really pushes these farms to go the hybrid way? And that has been clearly discussed. But if you read through this article, you will come across the same issues that we've talked about, the relationships which are vertical in nature and horizontal in nature. And the governance structures that have been suggested. And they've also mentioned about market failure. or missing markets. What is a market failure? When you talk of a market failure, because if we don't have proper coordination mechanisms, if the governance mechanisms are not appropriate, then we may end up with the market failure. When you talk over a market failure, what do we mean? So those are some of the things that you need to understand. Who read this article? Hello? Is there anybody who interacted with this article? Justus? Troy, did you read this article?
Doctor, I only got to read the abstract as I'm currently working on my research project for the end of the year. So I've been very focused on just finishing up my research.
Okay, so what is your research all about?
Doctor, I'm looking at the biosecurity for smallholder farmers in Southern Africa, especially in the livestock industry, with a focus on the recent foot and mouth outbreaks that happened in South Africa.
So it will be important just to read these articles because you can borrow a few ideas and some concepts that might be useful as you write your project. So what is a market failure? What is a market failure? So can you find out, read more on the market failure and what really contributes to market failures? When you talk about market failure, what is the cause of market failures? And what are some of the different forms of market failure? Are we together on that?
Yes, doctor.
Hello?
Yes, doctor, we are getting you.
Yes, yes,
Have
doctor.
you got those questions? I hope
Yes,
you've
doctor.
noted them down.
Yes, doctor.
Who can remind us?
Doctor, you said we read more about market failure and then the causes of market failure and the different kinds of market failure.
Yes, so please read more on that, because it's again connected to what we are talking about, the discussions on governance and even coordination. So again, they've tried to discuss the different types of supply chains. And there is something that was again of interest when I was going through this article. Is it on page 7? Is it? And they've expounded on the management of common resources. And how can these resources be managed? And what are some of the, again, institutions that can be put in place as you try to manage these resources? So the issue of collective action is coming out strongly. And how smallholder farmers can try and rebalance the market power of large counterparts, because many a times smallholder farmers are inconvenienced. They do not have the capability to participate in certain markets. because they have been overpowered by the large, producers. So how do they go about that so that they rebalance that form of power? So you need to go through that article to understand such kind of issues. Anybody who has gone through the article, the different relationships, the typologies have been clearly discussed. So if you go through the typologies, again, you can see the relationships, the vertical, even the interdependencies that we talked about, again, have been repeated there. And they've also defined what governance is all about, and coordination, and so on and so forth. So it's just about trying to understand these, of course, from different dimensions. And then they've discussed the relationship between the supply chains driven by large retailers, driven by, cooperatives and other kind of actors. So I urge you guys to take time and go through these articles. Then the last one was on the one on Continum framework. The one that I think it's Mercy who mentioned that she has read it. Strategic choice along the vertical coordination continuum. So this really expounds on the framework that we discussed yesterday, the vertical coordination continuum, and how firms tend to move or organizations move from the spot or cash market to vertical integration. And they have explained the different categories within these continuum and what happens at the different levels. So when you're moving from a spot market and you slowly start now integrating into the system by engaging in some specific contracts, relation-based alliance, equity-based alliance, until you are fully vertically integrated. So this is very good for you guys. It expounds on that framework, and you are able to understand as a firm, when you want to move from spot market to equity-based alliance to vertical integration, what are some of the activities that you should undertake? And what does it mean to be at the relation-based alliance? Again, the different mechanisms have been clearly explained. When you talk about the invisible hand coordination, where there's minimal control to a higher level control. So what do you do in order to be able to move to the next level of the continent? So, and you can see some of the key issues that we discussed, we mentioned even yesterday, relating to the coordinations and governance, the bounded rationality, opportunism, and so on and so forth. So these have been discussed. So please find time and read through this article, because it will enrich your understanding on this framework. So they've also mentioned some of these ex ante and post ante kind of activities and even costs. So please do create time and read through. Anybody who has read through and has an issue? Is there anyone who has gone through this article and maybe needs some clarification? And you can see table 1 has summarized it all. The level of control for spot markets, for the different categories, specification, contract, relation-based, equity-based, and vertical integration. So it has summarized everything that has been discussed on that in that article. And then as you move from one node to the next node, again, trying to weigh the different options and the trade-offs. How costly is the coordination? Is it costly or is it not costly? If it is too costly, of course, there is need for a change. You need to explore other alternatives so that you are able to minimize on the costs of the coordination. Again, you ask yourself those questions. Is it costly, the alternative? If it is not, then you can move on. If it is, then again, you can decide on what to do. Is an alternative programmable? Is it something that is doable, workable? Can you implement it? And what is the risk? And what is the return on the trade-off? And at the end of the day, you need to reevaluate the value chain strategy and adopt new strategy. So all this is influenced by bounded rationality, again, the information within your reach or the information that you possess and the experience that you've had or you have encountered. So this is well narrated and explained below. So after going through this article, I think it is something that you can read and understand and summarize. So when you're reading, you don't just read as a novel. Read and understand and make some summaries. Summarize what you have read. Because when you'll be revising, I doubt if you will again take time to go through all these articles. You'll have limited time to revise. And McHugh, you have volumes of things to go through. So I urge you guys to go through these articles and summarize the contents. And in case there is any query or anything that you feel we can discuss, then you can bring it on board. So anything else? Any question? Guys, are you there or you've disappeared?
Dr.
We are
Ngara.
here.
Am I talking to myself, eh?
No, doctor.
No, no.
Doctor.
Now, at your own time, I want you to identify some of the vertical integrations that have taken place in the agricultural sector and the alliances. The vertical integrations and alliances that you are familiar with. So are you able to identify them? Are there new forms of vertical integration and alliances that you're aware of? So are you able to identify all those? And then we can share next time, eh?
All right, Doctor.
Yes? Sam, is it clear?
Yes,
Is
Doctor.
the
Yeah,
instruction
the question
clear?
is clear. The question is clear, Doctor. I only have a request.
Yes, we know that there are so many changes that have taken place, eh? Even in the agricultural sector, people integrating backward and forward, strategic alliances being formed, and so on and so forth. So can you identify a few alliances that have been formed, or some form of integrations that have taken place within the sector? And perhaps you can even go ahead and explain why those alliances took place and those integrations took place. Any question up to that point? I think with that, we are done with this topic on supply chain coordination and governance.
No questions from our side. Thank you, Doctor.
So in the next class, I'm hoping that I'll get this professor from Stellenbosch, who will take you through the 6th topic on supply chain competitiveness and performance. So I'm already in touch with him, so he will communicate his availability. And if it's not possible to have him next week, then we will continue to the 7th topic as he gives us an ideal date or communicates when he can be available. So we'll move to cross-border trade. Cross-border trade. So that is my plan. And then now we can have our second continuous assessment test the 2nd week of October. Was that the agreement, guys? I think we agreed on the date yesterday. Is it 2nd week of October?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes.
But we also have another test like in the 2nd week of October. So, my request is, could we maybe specify the date so that we also tell when we can have the test for the agribusiness?
So
I
have
don't
you
know.
set a date for the other one?
Okay.
Have you set a date for the other one?
According to me, no. Maybe if I didn't hear it well. But she also said the 2nd week of October.
Okay, so we can have it on Wednesday, on 11th.
Doc, I have a request. Okay, so now that the traveling and all the settling in, I'm seeing that they're dating it up to Wednesday the 4th. Can it come like around this week of 18th? Because now before the settling in and everything, the disorientation.
Oh, you are also traveling to UP?
Yeah.
So I thought you guys have traveled.
Yes, Doctor, not yet. We're supposed.
But then, not unless these programs keep on changing, eh? Because I remember the previous communication regarding the timelines and activities, the schedule of key activities and dates. Let me just check. travel to the SFSC venue is 30th, 1st of October. Then orientation is supposed to be on October 2nd. Then a resumption of teaching. So that is the plan that I have.
You have the one they sent in today. Maybe I don't know how to add it to the charts. Let me see.
But that was for PhD. The one that was shared by Dranka, Is it? There's one that was shared today. No, this was let me see. Anyway, not unless you have a different one, So does it mean that we have a new timetable?
No. So I've not received that communication, But anyway, so what is your proposal, Nancy? Okay, I was proposing now that this orientation end on Wednesday, the October 4th. Now it will be like a week now to the cut. Okay, I just feel it will be so disorienting given that the culture shock and everything. So maybe like a 2 weeks window, then maybe we can do it on that week of 16th.
So we have 11th and 16th, So that means you are proposing that we have it on 18th,
Yeah, that week of 18th. 18th, 19th, 20th. Yeah, the members will decide.
So what do the others think? Do you think we can have it on 18th?
Doctor, I think it's okay unless the timetable for EP students is kind of conflicting. But I think it's okay to the students who are supposed to move to UP.
Okay.
Yes.
So I believe, Nancy, when are you traveling? Is it next week?
This week on Sunday.
So it means we'll be traveling together, Though I'm going for a different business, but still ARC related, So then that's fine. So we shall communicate further if at all there are changes. So let's leave it at that point that it's 18th.
No, but good afternoon, Doctor. On the 18th, I won't be able to attend. Most probably, I usually have clashes on that day, so I alternate most of the time between classes.
So how do we manage these diverse interests?
I think.
What about
how
17th?
about Tuesday?
What about 17th?
Yeah, 17th is perfect.
17th,
Yes.
Okay. Good, 17th. So not unless there are other concerns. So let's leave it at that point.
Okay.
So guys, please read these articles. Kindly, I urge you to go through the articles and make some short notes that can guide you as you revise and do your personal readings. So thanks. Let's end at this point. So see you next week.
Doctor.
Bye,
Yes.
Doctor.
Unfortunately, yesterday I wasn't able to attend class and understand those who are in class were able to receive their test marks results? How are you going to assist me?
Yes, they were able to receive, eh?
Oh,
What
I
is
was writing.
your email, Sam?
Should I type it in the chat?
Is it Sam Mwebeza?
Walekwa, sorry.
Sam?
Walekwa.
Just send it on the chat box.
All right.
Who else did not receive?
Me too, doctor. I was writing a semester test. I forgot to inform you that I'm writing yesterday early in the morning.
Please send me your. Let me see if I have my panel.
Doctor, me too. I didn't like. I joined in late.
Can you send me the email addresses on the chat box then? So just wait and confirm, eh?
Okay.
Or can I just check if it has hit your email?
Sorry, doctor, please repeat.
Confirm if the report has hit your email.
Oh, yes, it has. It has. Thank you.
And please, yesterday I mentioned that people should avoid lifting information directly from articles. I had such an encounter whereby somebody lifts almost 2 pages, responding to one question. And whatever has been lifted does not communicate. Confirm. So I think you've all received the results. Alice, kindly confirm.
Yes, doctor. I did receive. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good evening, eh?